We started experimenting with restorative practices some years ago with juvenile offenders. We used what are called neighborhood conference committees, we call them that, but they involve a panel of neighbors sitting and talking to a teenager who's gotten in trouble and coming up with some sanction that would operate to hopefully inculcate some level of value appreciation in a young person. We've done some circle sentencing with certain cases, with adult cases, and that has been really well accepted. You know, I believe it was Einstein who is given credit for saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, that's really what we were doing, what we've been doing with criminal justice. We have not been able to address the root problems, and that immediately becomes apparent to citizens when they sit in a sentencing circle, when they participate in the criminal justice process. Circle sentencing is a restorative practice that involves basically people sitting in a circle. And as a matter of fact, there's something that is really ancient in our bones about sitting in a circle and having really serious conversations. The first groups, I mean, when we first got together as in our evolutionary development, we sat in caves around a fire, and we would sit in a circle because everybody could be the same distance from the fire. And that really is, in some ways, that is an apt metaphor for circle sentencing, because the fire is the conflict, and that always is at the root of a crime. There's some kind of conflict of a criminal episode. And so you got everybody sitting equidistant from each other and equidistant from the subject, which is not the person, but the issue, which is in the middle of that circle, in a metaphorical sense. And so we're still sitting in circles and caves in many ways, the way we began, and which is a long way from the pro forma rigid atmosphere of a courtroom, which was an evolutionary development itself. I mean, the way we got to sitting in rows facing the judge who had a long black robe, that was supposed to inspire fear and trembling in the populace. Long black robe, it's what wizards wore. The whole criminal justice apparatus was a mechanism by which the king, after the Norman conquest, kept control of the population. King through a series of steps down to the local judge. And the way I see criminal justice, the way I see the word justice, and the concept of justice is that it's a means of peacemaking. It's peacekeeping and peacemaking. So in any event, we have done a number of circles where everybody who has an interest in the crime gets to come to the circle. The police officer who made the arrest, the prosecutor, the defense lawyer, the mama, of the defendant, the mama of the victim. It's hard to do circle sentencing with crimes of violence because sometimes you're dealing with people there who can be dangerous. And so circle sentencing works best on crimes that do not involve violence, at least not random violence. And so we will have a circle that has all those kinds of people, plus the prosecutor, and neighbors, and they all kind of sit there, and nobody can talk unless he or she is holding what we call the talking stick, or it could be anything. It can be, a legal pad or a pencil or something, and it's passed around the circle, and you have to have it before you can talk, which prevents people from, not like me, monopolizing the conversation, right? So it has been incredibly well received, It is very difficult to do. They're really resource intensive. And in a large urban jurisdiction, which Travis County is, we have somewhere around 800,000 people who live there in the county as such. It's pretty tough to do in a large urban environment. But it's not impossible, and it really requires a lot of work, and it's different. The biggest problem with the criminal justice system is that it does not embrace anything that is different. We've done it the same way since the Norman conquest of England in 1066, and we're going to, by God, keep doing it that way, no matter what, whether it works or not. And so innovation has been a stranger to the criminal justice system pretty much. But restorative justice is a revolution in itself, because the criminal justice system asks three questions. Three questions that the regular system asks: who done it, what law did he break, and how are we going to punish him? Those are the three questions of the regular system. Restorative justice asks three different questions: what's the harm, what needs to be done to repair the harm, and who's responsible for the repair? Well, that makes a lot of sense to people. I mean, it really does. I mean, that's a very sensible approach. Because most of the time, you know who done it, who did it. And the real question is, what is the most efficacious disposition of the issue now, of the conflict now? What needs to happen now? Restorative justice makes the public a partner in its own protection. There was a time, when everybody was responsible for protecting the community. Some people rode out in posses and confronted the lawbreaker, and other people stayed home and comforted the victim, but everybody was a part of the system of protection before we got real specialized. And that's really what restorative justice does. I mean, it takes us from the cave, sitting around the fire in a cave, to sitting around the conflict and dealing with problems ourselves. That really is the greatest antidote to what I believe to be the greatest threat to democracy. I think the greatest threat to democracy is a sense of powerlessness that people have, because everybody does things. We have specialists who do things that we used to do for ourselves. And what that does is lead to a sense of powerlessness. And restorative justice gives everybody a sense of their own power, and their power working together. And that has a self-limiting function, performs a self-limiting function, and a self-empowering function as well. And it means that we're not, there are some who would say that we've been sheep for the last 8 years. We ain't sheep no more. We're not sheep anymore. And we need a way to express our power now. And restorative justice provides that in the most healthy way I can imagine, because there are built-in safeguards.